So this is the Art Life video blog, day 102, and I'm Robyn Williams.
My name is Jacob Wolf. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Thank you, Robyn, for inviting me here into your studio.
Thank you for asking me.
This is great. You have some amazing work in here.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't think I'm ever happier than when I'm working on this stuff, so
Awesome.
I love it.
So you're an assemblage artist.
Yes, assemblage. That's how we say it. No, yep, assemblage artist.
And so what was assemblage your first artistic love?
No, actually, my background was in theater design. I studied technical theater in college, and I worked as a lighting set designer and scene painter. So that had been sort of my first, really artistic stuff. And then personally, I had an art minor in college, and so I mostly did drawings, working in black and white. But then as my career in the theater expanded, I got more and more in just to the theater side of things. And then in running the venues themselves, which is what I do during the day now.
Oh, wow.
I'm the executive director for Portland 5 Centers for the Arts here in Portland. But then as, kind of feeling the need to kind of get back and doing more creative since my job's more administrative now, I dabbled in a lot of different things. I've done some photography, I did jewelry, and then I got into the assemblage. And because I'm very enamored by Mexican folk art, particularly shrines, retablos, things like that. And I started dabbling in this, taking some classes, and I think it's kind of like my past and what I'm doing now came together, because I think my pieces are very storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
There is a little story behind every piece. I tend to give titles that tell you or give a hint as to what the story is, but it's really up to other people to figure out what the pieces are saying for them. So I kind of feel like my theatrical side, which is very 3D, has come together with my art, which is now very 3D, where I was a very 2D artist for so long. So
wow, that's a big change.
Yeah.
So what is your journey been like in assemblage? Have you shown in a lot of shows? How did you get introduced to the art scene with?
I would say Chris Haberman was a big part. Isn't Chris Haberman everybody's intro to everything? Yeah. I mean, I don't know if there's an artist in town that Chris doesn't know. So I started out as a patron of Chris's, just buying some of his work. My husband and I own several of his pieces, and started to make art, and he started inviting me to be in some of his group shows.
Wow.
There's nothing like selling a piece for you to go, ooh, this is real. And so I just got to, I'm a student of Michael Dominguez, who's a very well-known assemblage artist and teacher. And, spent a lot of time refining my assembling techniques. And I don't know, it's like you kind of, I think any artist when they're starting a process, and you just sort of in your heart know it's working, like when it's really working, your heart starts beating really fast, and you're like, oh, this is fun, and this is a great way to spend your time. And I mean, I could be in the studio for 8 solid hours, and it just seems like nothing.
Right.
So it's just really fun. But and the whole artistic process is very fun, because you kind of start off with an idea, or at least in my case, I start off with an idea, and then I go through the studio and just start pulling all the stuff because I don't really know what I'm going to use. And spread it out and then start kind of putting it together. And sometimes I'm right on the story I originally intended, and other times it goes in a totally different direction. And sometimes there's some fighting in there. There's always the moment where you're going, oh my God, this is so bad. This sucks so bad. And you're like, oh, what am I? I'm not an artist. This is terrible. And then you get over that. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, that's working. It's brilliant. It's fantastic. And so there's just this process that you go through with every single piece. And sometimes I just put something away because I'm so frustrated, and it, or I have a piece like this piece up here on the wall. That piece fought me so long, and I kept looking at it, and I was like, it's not working, and I couldn't figure out why. And then one day, I had this aha moment, and I totally figured out what was wrong with it, and why it wasn't working, and it came together really great. I kind of have certain things like that I just have to get away from them for a while.
Mm-hmm. So with your materials for your art, do you go to like thrift shops, or do you find materials when you're out and about?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm always looking down at the ground and picking stuff up, and I go to like the rebuilding center and reuse it, and places like that, and buy old hardware. The Goodwill is a great place to buy stuff. Antique stores, you can find things like, a jar full of wooden spools. That might be very awesome. Or Halloween's a great time for me because I load up on the little plastic skeleton skulls, like this little guy here, because I can paint them and turn them into look like bone, or alter them in some way. That's very fun. So I stock up there, and people give me stuff. I came home one day, and on my back gate there was like a half dozen little packages of these little tiny winged glow-in-the-dark angels that I still don't know who left them for me. And they're great for like cutting off their little heads and putting little skeleton heads on and working them into pieces. And because I like I do a lot of themes on death and dying, but it's not all of it's really grim. And some of the pieces in here today are on the grim side, but some of them tend to be real humorous, kind of thumbing your nose at death, which is what Mexican folk art does so much, particularly like the Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead stuff in the fall is pretty huge, and it's all very comic and funny, and so some of my pieces will go in that direction too. That's why you have little angels with little skull heads on them. They're cute.
So you paint over the objects that you put in. So I mean, there's just so much that you're doing to the art in order to come to a finished product. I guess it's just really amazing. Let's show off some of these. All right, and you have a name for this one?
Yes, this one's called Weird Science. So it's it's kind of a funny work, a look at sort of scientific things in a sort of more like a Victorian sort of creepy macabre sort of way. So it's like not all human. It's got a lot of different little things. It's about time passing, and
this is 360 degrees, which is why I'm turning it around. And you have maybe an encaustic piece here?
Yeah, I like using wax. I took some encaustic classes, and I'm certainly not an encaustic painter. It's kind of fun to dabble in, but I like texture, and sometimes wax is just the perfect the perfect thing to use. It'll stick to anything that's porous, and you can collage into it and do some very interesting things with the wax. So I'll use wax quite a bit on things.
So you were telling me about a few shows that you have coming up soon.
So this September at Pulse Gallery in the Everett Street Loft, that'll be opening the first Thursday in September. It's a show that I'm doing with my husband Roger, who writes poetry, and so it's going to be my interpretation of his poems. And so you'll be able to see his poem and then see what I did with it. Some of his poems are really kind of literal, and some of them are kind of on the more macabre side of things, which is perfect for me. Some of his poems make no sense to me whatsoever, and so it'll be very interesting to see kind of how I interpret it.
Right.
And so that'll be fun. And then...
Have you ever collaborated with other artists before?
I haven't. I mean, Chris Haberman and I did a little piece together just for fun in a class that he did once. But no, this will be my first time to do that. And Roger and I don't collaborate on things very much because we do such different stuff. So that'll be really fun. He's just always had some poems that I was like, oh, I got to do something around that because they're interesting and because some of them really tell a story. So that will be really, really fun. Like the Pinocchio piece that I'm working over there, which is fun.
That is so cool.
It's been fun to do that. And the next piece that I'm starting to pull stuff for is based on the Hansel